Ciao a tutti and welcome to Workshop Talk. As promised, in this new format we are going to address all the aspects behind my last video. I will break down every step of the sharpening process for you, giving you tips and breaking down details that will help maximize your sharpening result. Now let's start from the first tool, the kannaban. As I mentioned in the video, this is a dead flat piece of mild steel. There will be a couple of questions to address, and the first one will be, since I'm using sharpening powder and mediums, how is it possible that this plate doesn't wear out? And the answer is hidden in the abrasive mechanics between the kannaban and the chisel. Now, let me try to simplify it as best as I can. We need to understand two key points. The first one being, mild steel is softer than the tempered steel of a chisel. Being a softer steel, the abrasive particles have more grip onto the soft metal of the kannaban. And this makes so that when you rub the chisel onto it, the particles roll at two different speeds, slower on the soft metal and faster on the hard metal. And this, although a little counterintuitive, creates more abrasion on the harder metal than the soft metal. The other aspect that is really important to notice is this thin line that goes all around the Japanese chisels. The fact that the surface area around the back of the chisel is thin makes so that the abrasive action is more effective on the back of the chisel rather than the kannaban. So when you think about it, in order to dish out a kannaban, you need to consume a lot of chisel. And because of these abrasive mechanics and the difference in the surface area between the kannaban and the chisel, this tool will remain flat for many years before you have to either rectify it or buy a new one. Now let's address a couple of tips and tricks on how to use it, and I will show you the effect of different abrasive mediums applied to this tool. As you saw in the video, we can use different mediums. The first one is synthetic stones. Synthetic stones get rubbed directly onto the plate. That creates a slurry and reports the medium onto the kannaban. In the same way, we can use natural stones of different grades. I have selected three: a Natsuya, Aizu, and a nagura stone. These represent coarse, medium, and fine. And as a third alternative, you can use aluminum oxide powder. As reference from the previous video, I have an unset Kikuhiromaru chisel here, on which I'm going to show you the whole process in more detail. So, how do we hold the tool? The first thing we need to have is awareness of where we are sitting with the back of the chisel. For this process, it's really important that we apply the most pressure on the forward side of the cutting edge. And this, over time, will make so that we don't remove unnecessary metal from the rest of the ura. In fact, it is good practice for this area to remain as thin as possible throughout the lifetime of a chisel. To make you better understand, I will show you some other chisels. This practice is considered to be in Japan a good way to understand whether a carpenter has taken good care of his own tools. And in this case, we can see the lifetime of a chisel over many years and signs of good and not so good sharpening techniques. In the first example, we can see a chisel that has almost reached half his life cycle. And as you can see, the ura in this case has worn out quite evenly all across the area of the chisel. Now I want to compare it with this second example. One of the common mistakes is to apply different pressure on different sides of the chisel. Here is quite evident. We can see the left-hand side, or right-hand side if you look at it from above, that has been sharpened with more pressure. This makes so that this left side has worn out quicker than the right side. Although the area is now flat, this can reduce the life cycle of a chisel. Another common mistake is to apply even pressure on the whole surface of the chisel. This simple mistake wears out the ura consistently, but all the way throughout. As a consequence, you risk to lose completely the ura by the time you get halfway through the life cycle of this nomi. Which brings us to our last example. As you can see here, the ura has completely disappeared. Now the chisel, yes, is still usable, but is not as efficient as it should be. Now let's get to the stones. For this video I decided to do the whole process free-handed. We start reporting some material from a Natsuya stone. An Atsuya stone is usually considered to be between 1000 and 1500 grit. It's important to spread the slurry evenly, working on the whole surface of the kannaban. And once we have enough material, we can add a little water and start working the back of the chisel. To start with, we apply little pressure. As you can see, I'm applying the most pressure on the forward side of the chisel, only supporting the back area, keeping the nomi perpendicular to the kannaban. And only after a few passes we can start reading the action of the abrasive material. We start refreshing the slurry on the kannaban and put some extra water. It's quite important also to listen to the sound of the abrasive material. As you work on the kannaban, the particles of the stone start to break in smaller and smaller pieces. That's why after every few passes we need to refresh the slurry on the kannaban. Before refreshing, we take the occasion to check where we are at with the abrasion. Another thing to avoid is to let the kannaban go to dry. As you can see in this instance, the left-hand side of the slurry is drying up. This makes so that instead of sharpening the back of the chisel, we're actually burnishing it. In other words, this polishes the area without wearing it. I'll mark out for you the areas that are still not affected by the sharpening at this stage. As you can see, we have a slight unevenness in the original grind of this nomi. The very front bevel is still not affected, and especially this right-hand corner is not touching the kannaban yet. We are in front of a two-way road at this stage. We can keep wearing the chisel on the kannaban or perform what in Japanese is called Uradashi. Uradashi is a technique that is only possible because of the lamination of the steels. Because the backside of the chisel is made of softer steel, we have the possibility to push it in order to bring forward the hard steel without breaking it apart. So before we continue on the kannaban, I will show you how this practice is done. For this we will need a hard piece of timber or an anvil of some sort. In my case, and if you have seen my previous videos, I'm lucky enough to have a beautiful piece of railroad, which we are going to use as an anvil. So as I mentioned, this practice is about hammering the soft steel in order to push forward the hard steel. There are some areas that we shouldn't get close to. In fact, if we hammer the hard steel, there is a guarantee that it's going to chip. So in order to avoid chipping, we are going to hammer a few millimeters behind the lamination line. As I said before, we're going to push the full edge, focusing on the area on the right. It's important not to exaggerate with the strength of the blow. A light tap will be enough for the steel to be pushed forward. One piece of advice at this stage is to have a solid contact point at the back of the chisel from where you're tapping. A solid contact will give you a full sound. When the contact is not present, you will hear a bit of chittering. As you can see, my main focus was on this right side, where we need to push the steel a bit further. Let's now see how it reads on the kannaban before we tap further. I will now continue on the synthetic stone to show you the difference in efficiency between naturals and synthetics, and how synthetics can be more aggressive than naturals. As you can see, after a few passes, our abrasive action has shifted to the front and move a little bit to the right. This means we need to tap a little bit more behind this area here. As the point that we need to push forward is the very corner, it's important to think about the direction to which we are pushing the steel. In this case, we want to start from the center, moving it towards the corner. This will make so that this side of the chisel will start folding towards that direction. As you can see, the direction of the hammering goes forward towards the corner. Back to the kannaban, a little more slurry, and after a few passes we should be able to see the result of our Uradashi. And there we have it. You can see now that the surface at the front is wearing out quite evenly. Now it's time to make this area fully flat with the front. The Uradashi process is one of the most important and most key factors in extending the lifespan of a Japanese chisel. As I mentioned before, keeping the ura for a long time is a sign of good practice and proper care and maintenance of a tool. As you can see, I'm using the full surface of the kannaban. This will also help the kannaban to last for many years. We check again our progress and we see how the sharpening is advancing towards the back of the chisel. Another check to see where we are at, and we see that the only area that is not yet been affected by the sharpening is this little section. We are still yet to bring the ura to a perfect plane, as you can see from these two sides here, and the back. Getting back to our form, I want to remind you, only apply pressure on the forward side of the cutting edge. The back side of the chisel should only be supported by your following hand. So this is the lead, the other one is the following. As you can notice, I'm applying pressure almost outwards, not lifting the chisel, because that is going to ruin your geometry. So the contact needs to be at all times on the full surface, but with much less pressure. The aim is to reduce the pressure at the back of the chisel and apply more to the front. Remember to put a little water to keep the plate lubricated. We put a little bit more slurry and continue this way until the back of the chisel is in full contact with the surface of the kannaban. You can now see how the whole back of the chisel has been in contact with the kannaban. Another point to make is that this little area here has not been in contact yet with the kannaban, but this is in fact not quite essential to bring all the way back down. The main point is that at least 90% of the ura is in contact and perfectly flat. Think about it this way. At all times we want to sharpen as little as possible from the ura, so that the lifetime of this chisel is extended as much as possible. As you can see as well from the scratch pattern, this is one of the differences between synthetics and natural stones. Let me now sketch it for you. The abrasive particles of synthetic stones are much sharper than naturals. In fact, natural stones are a bit more flaky and rounder in shape as well. When they break apart, they become smaller particles, still a little bit rounded up. As you can see from the shape, the metal surface area sharpened by synthetic stones creates V-groove into the metal, while natural stones create a more wavy pattern, a more rounded groove. These over time, especially in the finishing on the bevel, make so that the cutting edge is more regular. This is essentially a simple explanation on why sharpening and finishing with natural stones creates a sharper edge. Also, the common consensus is that as a result of sharpening with natural, you have less risk of microchipping on the metal. In fact, the V-groove tips become a breaking point, microscopic, but still a breaking point. Also, I want to remind everybody that this assessment is based on high carbon layer steel. To prove this point, I will up the grit to 2000 on a synthetic stone before we go back to the naturals and show you the difference in scratch pattern. Also, the finer you go with grit on the kannaban, the less pressure you want to apply overall. The trick here comes in just refreshing the slurry a little bit more often. Another small tip in order not to ruin the bevel that you are sharpening is, instead of lifting the back of the chisel first, we lift the front. This makes so that there is no pressure applied on the fresh bevel, which minimizes the risk of chipping it. Now let's check the scratch pattern left by the synthetic stones. You can see with the reflection, the scratches are quite deep still into the steel. Remember, I just passed the backside with a 2000 synthetic stone. And for your reference, I'll go back on the 1000, 1500 equivalent natural, an Atsuya stone. Between grits, we also need to make sure that the kannaban is cleaned from the previous slurry. We apply some water and we rub our stone. Once we have some slurry, we go back on sharpening. We make sure that the surface is wet and we continue. Now the first thing we can see is that there is a bit of a scratch pattern still in the metal. However, the shiness is changing. There is more reflection. As step number 2, I will put it on the Aizu stone. And this is a stone that is more equivalent to the 2000 synthetic. The first thing you notice is how the metal is reflecting way more light. And this reflection in its own is the result of the sharpening difference between naturals and synthetic. Back to the sketchbook, I want to explain how light works and why this is a proof of this theory. To prove the difference in the geometry left by synthetics versus natural, we need to zoom in into the groove pattern left by each. Synthetic stone create a sharper V-groove shape, whereas naturals have a more rounder geometry. When light hits the surface, in a V-groove is less likely to escape. In fact, when light changes the angle of refraction, results in a duller look. With a more wavy pattern, the refraction of light is smoother, and from the point of view of an eye, light comes back in the same direction, resulting in a more polished look. My sketch here is not definitely scientific accurate, but this is how light works in different types of surfaces, and I invite you to do your own research to confirm this light dynamic. Now to the last element, we have some aluminum oxide. And this is a powder that I was given as a gift, and it should be equivalent to 20,000 grit. So let's put it to the test. We put some powder on the kannaban, water it down, and start sharpening. I also want to remind you that this is the same powder of which many synthetic stones are made of. And just after very few passes, you can see how this powder is leaving a much duller surface, meaning the light is not bouncing back in the same way. You can definitely see how, being a 20,000 grit powder, the scratch pattern is refining a lot more. Now this is how the surface looks after sharpening a little while with this powder. To finish this process now, I'm gonna use a nagura stone and finish off the ura side with a more mirror polished finish. We clean the kannaban to remove any previous powder, put some water, and apply some slurry with the nagura stone. Look at the difference straight away. This nagura stone is rated to be around 4,000 to 5,000 grit. But you can see immediately how the light is bouncing back to the camera. Now this is the point where I usually like to pass from the kannaban directly to a synthetic stone. If you like to go this direction, it's quite important to have quite a hard synthetic stone of a high grit. The reason because it's important for the stone to be hard is that it doesn't dish out quickly. So it allows you, with minimum pressure, to refine the polish of the ura side. You can wet the stone, and if you have it, you can use another hard natural stone of fine grit to create some minimum slurry. When the two stones are hard, it's quite hard to see the slurry. But don't worry, even if it's not so evident, it's gonna raise. Now let's have a last look before we start putting this bevel on the stone. Now, if the stone is irregular and rocks, it's also a good idea to place something so that the stone is more stable. As I was saying before, although it can be a little bit hard to see, you can see the milky slurry created on the natural stone. Minimum pressure, and you start working your bevel. A quick refresh, and we put the bevel on the stone for a little longer. You can now see how the polish is changing and the finish is becoming even more mirror. There's also a few small scratches to the front that we need to refine. And after a bit more work on the natural stones, we should see the result. You can quite clearly see now how the result of the natural sharpening stones is more homogeneous compared to the synthetic ones. And from here, now we need to attack the bevel. The first step will be to adjust the main bevel and grind it on the Atoma plate. This will make sure that we start from a very flat and regular reference for our sharpening on natural stones. Before we start this process, I'm gonna check with the Shinwa square the squareness of the bevel. Now, as you can see, there is a little off square in the bevel on this side, and if we reference it on the other side, it looks quite in line with the square. That means that although one side is square, the other one is not. So we are going to adjust the bevel to have an equal position. That means that this corner here that you see on the right will need to come down a little bit more than the left one. In order to adjust this, we're gonna have to apply slightly more pressure on this point. So we start by putting water and we start grinding. It is quite important that when you set yourself onto a diamond plate, you find the right angle. I do like to do it by feel, but feel free to check your angle with an angle jig to find your correct angle or your desired one. The first few passes, especially after performing Uradashi, are gonna feel a little bit more gritty. So my advice to you is to take it a little bit slower until the crest of the hammering starts to flatten out. As you can see, we are just starting to go back to a normal plane. At this point, we can also increase the speed a little bit. Try to use the whole surface of the Atoma plate. It is important to use the whole surface of a diamond plate to make it last much longer for your sharpening. If you look at the reflection, you can now see how my sharpening, applying more pressure over this corner, is bringing the angle down a little bit. And we're starting to get rid of all the markings from the hammering. Now, while we continue with the diamond plate, I want to touch a couple of points on the form for sharpening, and especially for freehand sharpening. When sharpening Japanese chisels, it is very important that you concentrate all your pressure to the very front of the steel. The hard steel wears down slower. So if you go with the weight of if you are not careful with your sharpening pressure, you end up over a few passes wearing down the soft steel more than the hard steel. When instead you focus on the hard steel, the soft steel wears down slower and you can keep your angle consistent throughout the process. So as you can see, I'm focusing on the contact of the bevel and my pressure is concentrated to the forward side of it on the hard steel of the chisel. I'll show you the scratch pattern now left by the diamond, and from it you can see the consistency of the bevel. The aim is to have a consistent scratch pattern that doesn't necessarily change, and you can assess it looking at the reflection of the light. From the reflection of the light, you should be able to see and read whether you are rounding up the bevel, this is a common mistake, or creating a dome onto it. As you can see here, the reflection is quite plain and consistent. To give you a better reference, I'm using a sacrifice chisel so that I can show you the difference in reflection of light when you're rounding up the bevel. I will also take the occasion to show you the movement, the change of movement when you round up the bevel while sharpening. Instead of being very stable, there is a tendency going forward to lift the front and going backward to lift the back. So when you do this, you see how my wrist is rolling. I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit for you to understand better. This movement here is absolutely detrimental for the end result. So it's really important to completely lock your wrist. You can see how much force I'm applying to my wrist in order to keep the bevel. Putting pressure to the front, so from a relaxed position, I'm holding steadily the chisel and sharpening. Close to no movement on my wrist, the arms follow, and this is the correct movement. On the wrong side, if you sharpen rolling the bevel, clearly you end up with a rolled bevel. Now I'll show you the difference under the light between a rolled bevel and a straight one. You can see on the left hand side the reflection is not consistent. There is a line indicating that the bevel is rolled. Now this is how we don't want to sharpen. This is the baseline for our sharpening later on. Now as you can see, we're almost through with the sharpening. We'll give it a few more passes until the bevel is completely flat. Almost there. We have to go through a little bit more on this side. Now this is a good point where we can check again the squareness. We have a little gap over here and a little bit of a gap over this side. We need to keep applying a little bit more pressure over this corner to make it even more even. But this would be already a very acceptable result. Now guys, I want to remind you about a giveaway that is going on my previous video. This little shinwa square is up for grab. So if you want to participate in the giveaway, go on my previous video, comment shinwa and your name, and you will be able to receive one of these little squares. And also guys, remember to subscribe if you haven't yet. As the metal deposits on the diamond plate, I find it quite a good practice to rinse it and keep it clean. You don't want too much of a metal deposit on the plate when you sharpen. So try to keep it clean and fresh at all times. So this, guys, is also a good moment to remind all of you that if you haven't subscribed, it would mean really a lot for me and for this channel if you do. It's quite a simple action, but it really helps my content to reach more people and my channel to grow. So if you like this content, this type of videos, if you like to see more tutorials and restoration videos, it would really mean a lot if you subscribe, and also go and check my previous work if you haven't yet. Now, one of the problems, let's call it, when sharpening freehand, especially in the beginning, if you haven't gotten used to it, is the pain on your fingers, really, and keeping the hands locked properly over a while, it can be quite painful. If you get a little bit tired, rather than pursuing too much and losing control over your bevel, stop for a few minutes. This is meant to be a slower process. It's meant to be something that you can appreciate. Take a little break, have a coffee, have a tea, and then get back to sharpening. It's quite important for me to say this. The thing that makes the most difference while sharpening freehand is your state of mind. The calmer you are, the more relaxed you are, the more you can focus, the more control you can have over your movements. These over time and with a little bit of experience really helps you to achieve a pristine and beautiful edge. So here we have it. As you can see, the bevel is really consistent. At the back now there is a little bit of a burr. You can maybe see it in this frame here. So the little very thin and sort of darker black line to the top is actually a burr. So you can see how the burr is visible like this. Now, before we remove this burr here, we want to refine the scratch pattern. What I'm going to do is to do this process completely on natural stones. Little disclaimer here, in order to do this fully on natural stones, you need quite a wide range of stones. And this is not for everybody, but what I want to show you is the beauty that you're gonna be able to see in the difference between stone and the progression of them. So I want to remind you as well that my journey with natural stones is quite at the beginning. Yes, I have a few stones now, but I haven't quite gotten yet to the point where I understand fully all the grades and how they behave on different steels. So what I'm going to do today is working sort of on segments. There might be a little back and forth in the beginning to understand which grit works better with this particular Kikuhiromaru nomi. And some of the stones I do know the name, some others I don't. So I just want to make that clear in this video. And we will see a bit the progression. Now, one thing that I want to say by the experience I've accumulated so far, this is sort of the progression that we're gonna go through, finishing most likely on the same stone, this Shirosuita, that I used in the previous video. So in order to keep consistency of the final result on the bevel, this is going to be our last stone. So to start testing, we're gonna have a Natsuya stone here, and this one is actually a really old stone that was given to me by a friend, and I don't know the strata or the mine origin of this particular stone. So let me clean it a little bit and ask if there is anybody from you that could know where this stone might be from. I would love some clues. Let me show you a bit the pattern. It seems to be like a 2,000 to 3,000 grit stone, so one step up from the Natsuya, but I noticed also on some steels this feels a little bit more aggressive than the Natsuya. So I'm not so sure between these two. That's why we're going to try them. The first step is always to flatten the stone. I use my diamond plate here. It's an Atoma diamond plate. Flattening also, as you can see, brings up a little bit of the slurry. So let's see how they behave. A bit more water, and we start from the Natsuya. So again, I'll show you the bevel before putting it on the stone. As you can see, the diamond doesn't reveal almost at all the lamination line. You will see very clearly after the first few passes how these will start popping out. Again, the main rule is always to use the full surface of the stone in order to sharpen. So this is always very important. You can see straight away after just a few passes how the lamination line starts to come out quite clearly. Obviously, we need to apply a bit more work in order to take all the scratches from the diamond stone, the diamond plate out of the bevel. Now, I'm gonna pass it to the other stone to see a first impression of differences. Now, one thing I'm noticing is there is a little bit more jittering here on this stone. Using it, I found out that this half part has a bit more density to it, and the bottom part is actually softer. So, yeah, it does create a bit of a difference in sharpening. And in this case, let me see if I can show you properly, maybe on this angle, the scratch pattern seemed to be a little bit more aggressive than the Natsuya. So what I'm gonna try to do is to use this stone first and then pass on to the Natsuya stone. So again, really important to keep your form throughout the process. Remember what I said before. Rather slow down your movement instead of being too quick and risk to ruin the geometry of the bevel. Focus on the bevel. Try to really feel the whole surface under your finger. Be aware of your position, be aware of your wrist, of your movements, and over time this will become more natural. At this stage, I think we have almost removed all the scratch marks from the diamond plate, and we'll give it another few passes and go on to the Natsuya stone. We flatten again the stone. This is again a constant process that needs to happen while sharpening. Remember also to sharpen on the whole surface of the stone, moving back and forth in the various areas, making sure that you use the full stone. This will make the stone last a little bit longer, dish out less, and as a result your bevel will be more consistent in the end. Alright, so we are at a good stage now. So now we pass on to the Natsuya stone and we see how this can refine our scratch patterns. Another interesting aspect with natural stones is that the particles, they break down while sharpening. So if you pass from a coarser stone to a finer one, don't worry too much if you transfer some of the slurry from the previous stone, because that will actually help fill up the gap between the grids of stones. As well, that will help the final result of the sharpening. Now this Natsuya, I like it particularly. This is a new stone in my collection. I haven't used it many times, but you can see how well it cuts. I really like the cutting power of this stone. It's beautiful. It feels very homogeneous under the bevel, contrary to the previous stone. This is very consistent. I didn't find, so far I haven't found a difference in softness and grit into the stone. As you can see, the bevel is actually refining itself. So it seems like the Natsuya stone is a tiny bit finer than the previous stone. One of the things that I always find really beautiful to see is that at some points, while sharpening with natural stones, even with coarser grades, you can slightly read, I hope you guys can see it, the layers in the soft steel and in the hard steel. So there is a pattern of the folding of these metals that shows through the action of natural stones. This is something that, generally speaking, you can't see with synthetics. It's much harder to detect. And this is by nature given by the difference in particles geometry. So how they behave on the steel hides or highlights these aspects of the forging process of the chisel. So again, as you can see, all our previous work, the base ground, creating a flat bevel, keeping the stone flat and consistent pressure, control of form. It's ensuring that throughout the process we have a consistent bevel. We can maximize this result to the end. It's quite easy while you go on finer stones as well to start rolling over, because when you do it fully freehand, the longer the process, the more you can see your little defects in terms of form. So if you have a 1% rolling mistake, by the end of the process, you're gonna read it much more, because you're applying that 1% consistently. And in the beginning, also with the coarser grit, this is not shown properly or fully throughout the bevel. So I personally find natural stones not just beautiful, but they help me refine my sharpening skills a lot while using them. So they are a beautiful challenge for me in that sense. I'll give it one last pass, and then we pass on onto the next stone. Let's give it a good wipe. Appreciate the bevel a little bit. And then we go on to the next one. Now, there's actually two stones that I'm thinking to try. One is this. I don't remember the name. I think I might have it on record. So if you see the name popping out, that's because I found it in post-editing. This one here, we think, when I say we, is me and the people that sometimes help me to try to identify stones. We think this to be possibly an Aizu stone, a little bit on the coarser side of the grit range. It cuts really well usually, very consistently, and it creates a nice slurry throughout. So let me show you straight away. You will notice the moment I put the steel onto the stone, you will see a lot of black coming through on the stone. So that means that the abrasive action is very efficient. As we saw before on the Natsuya, as you can see, the metal is coming down to the stone, meaning the stone is cutting really nicely straight away. Now, before we go too much into the sharpening, we give it a good check just to see how the scratch pattern looks like. For what I can see here on the hard steel, the scratch pattern is refining itself a tiny little bit, and yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily coarser than the Natsuya. I think it's actually slightly finer, but not excessively finer. So we'll give it a few passes. This could actually be a good intermediate stone for what I can see, and can prepare us to the next natural stone. Now, at this stage, while we refine the edge of the bevel, you're going to see that the time that we spend on the stone decreases a little bit. So it's just a little bit less as the scratch pattern refines and becomes smaller. There is less thickness, in a sense, of the grooves to refine and clean up. Remember not to let the stones go too dry. We want the particles of the stones to cut rather than get dry and start burnishing the bevel. With natural stones in particular, the mirror finish is not given by polishing the metal in a sense and burnishing it, but is given by the size of the particles. So the smaller the particles are, the more mirror finish you get onto the hard steel in particular. Put a little bit more water and we keep sharpening. One more aspect I almost forgot to mention. When you sharpen, in order to maximize your feel of stability, you always want to try to go into the direction of the longest point of the bevel. So in this case would be from this corner to that corner, or vice versa. Now this makes so that you have the most surface area in your direction of sharpening. This avoids, helps you avoid the rolling over of the bevel. So when we put it to work, if I work in this direction, the area of reference is just this one. So you can see it's quite short. Whether if I work in its entirety of length or slightly on an angle, so working on the diagonal of the two longest points, I use most of the length, avoiding rolling over, because I have more grip and more reference area to feel the bevel. So this is an important tip that can help both beginners in freehand sharpening and also experienced people. Something that oftentimes you see people sharpening also in this direction, but I would say the majority of those times the bevel gets rolled over. It's really difficult to keep control of geometry sharpening in this direction. So as you can see, I'm applying the same theory that I just explained. And now the polish on the bevel is refining itself even more. So this is the result of this stone being slightly finer than the Natsuya stone from before. You can see how it's starting to become a bit more polished, and there is a tiny little scratch over here that I would like to get rid of before we pass to the next stone. As you can see, again, I'm applying all the pressure to the bevel, supporting the handle and the back side of the chisel with my pinky and with my ring finger. As I'm approaching the end of this step, I lift up the pressure. I try to apply a little bit less pressure, in order to let the particle act in a bit more finer way onto the bevel. Now we check that little scratch from before. We want that to be gone, possibly. And is almost there, but you can see it ever slightly still. So you see from here to there. We want that to be gone before we pass to the next stone. One more thing that we are going to notice, if we keep the geometry really nice and regular, the bird that we created in the beginning with the diamond stone, because we have a very nice and flat bevel now, it's starting to lift up naturally. So you can see the burr just moving over. Now, since you can imagine we are slowly going down onto the bevel while sharpening. That's making so that the burr that was folded before on coarser stone is now refining, and we are managing to get rid of it without acting on the actual back of the bevel. So in this case, a few more passes onto the stones will bring us to a point where the burr should fall off almost by itself. One thing to keep an eye on when we are close to this stage is the fact that we don't want to risk going over the metal of the burr while sharpening, because that can both chip our edge and scratch our bevel. So from this stage onwards, we go carefully from the top of the stone, moving down. So if there is any burr left, we basically leaving it behind, right? And when it falls off, we are going to notice it, and it's gonna be the point where we rinse the stone, we reflatten the bed, and continue sharpening. Now you can see the very reason because we need to flatten the bed. These darker spots are now lower spots on the stone, so it's so important to always keep your stone flat. All right, let's see if I can show you the bevel properly. Yeah, seems like hopefully you're gonna be able to see. If you notice now on the hard steel, there is a pattern going on over there, and that's the beauty I was referring to before. That pattern is not scratches, but is the bevel being polished at this stage. So the alloy is a mix of different steels, and as you can see, it's folded and worked in a way that those metals, they mix properly, and on the natural stones, those really minor differences are really highlighted. So you can see how the bevel almost has a Damascus pattern. It's not Damascus, but you can really see the work of the blacksmith over there. Now this is the time where I think it's time to pass to the next stone and see where we bring it, where we can bring this bevel up to. Now, as we enter the pre-finishing stones, what I think is a good idea, if you have it, is to start using a nagura now to raise the slurry of these stones. This, by memory, is quite a soft stone. It's very muddy and tends to be a little bit sticky. So we need to, when we have a stone like this, we need to work on the control of the geometry, but also of the actual pressure that we are applying, because the more pressure, the more sticky the stone becomes. As you can see, even passing the nagura stone in front is raising a lot of slurry and sticking the nagura to the stone. So we now put more water, and with light pressure we start going over it. Because I don't know so much this stone, I want to stop just after very few passes to check straight away how the steel of the nomi is reacting. One thing I really want to show you straight away, the reason because I tend to only do very few passes, is exactly this. You see how the previous stone work is in the middle. This stone, I suspect I haven't flattened it, my bed, but I think it's slightly dished out, so you can see the action on the surrounding of the bevel, and it's actually scratching quite a lot, so I think this is actually a coarser stone than the previous one. So we'll move to a different stone rather. Now, because the previous stone has scratched the sides, what I'm going to do is step back to our previous stone, re-clean the whole surface of the bevel, and then we pass on to what I know for certain it is a finer stone. Also, while doing this, I want to share a thought on what I said about the sense that these natural stones give out, and is something that is mostly given by the sediment in which they create. And the sediment is a mix of, generally speaking, it is a mix of volcanic ashes, clay, and then these silica shales from crustaceous animals from, you know, the time when these stones were formed. And I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to smell clay, whether it was clay for pottery or clay in its natural form. You know, sometimes depending on where you live, you can find some fields that are rich in clay, and there is this very earthy scent that some stones give out. And you see, I'm half a meter away from the stone while sharpening, and I can actually see, I can actually smell the clay in this stone. And yeah, this is something that I really love about natural stones. We're almost there with the bevel. See how the lamination is showing off over here. Look how beautiful. See, on the hard steel, these are actually not scratches from the sharpening. This is the hard steel getting polished and highlighting the minor differences between the higher carbon content and the other metals of the alloys. Yeah, this is something that only natural stones can really bring out to detail. All right, now the bevel is at a stage where I'm happy with. Now we can pass to the next stones, and here I have two particular stones. One is a Masamotoyama Karazu. Karazu is this sort of black spotting on the stones, and it's often referred as crow pattern. This other here is a stone that I am not 100% sure what it is, but I have the suspect that this might be from the Uchigomori layer. Now, when you look at it, there is some red-purple dotting into it, which is something that is quite, I've seen a few times in Uchigomori. It wasn't marked as Uchigomori, but I've seen in a couple of threads that Uchigomori is recognized by rubbing the stone onto a sort of a white stone, and it leaves sort of like a purple marking. So I'll show you what I mean. Again, if you are a bit more expert than me in natural stones, I would really love for you to give me your opinion on this matter. You can write it in the comment section. You can DM me directly on Instagram, and you see the stone that gets reported on a lighter stone. This is reddish purplish. So I think it might be Uchigumori, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, anyway, we try to start from this. This, to my experience, was a tiny bit coarser than the Karazu stone. So we start always from flattening the bed. And we start polishing. We look straight away how the metal is reacting. All right, and you can see how it's straight away bringing more luster to the hard steel and refining the soft steel. This is quite beautiful, to be honest. All right, let's work a little bit on this stone before we go on the Karazu. This is really beautiful. Now this stone is really polishing beautifully the hard steel. It might be a little bit harder now to continue to see the pattern from the camera, but I can assure you that on a naked eye you can still appreciate all that work from the craftsman. Now, before I go too far with this one, I want to quickly pass it on the Karazu to see the difference, because I think that's going to be important to see where we want to continue our sharpening. I feel like they are somewhat similar in grade. Now, I am just wondering, because remembering the result from the last stone I used to finish the bevel in the previous video, I think these two might give a finer result than the Shirosuita. So I'm gonna step back on this one just to make sure that we're not gonna go too far and scratch the bevel rather than refining it on the Shirosuita. So it's something I really want to watch out. And this is always, especially in the beginning, is always the learning curve with natural stones. It's something that requires patience, requires a little bit of back and forth, knowing your stone, knowing the steels that you are putting onto your stone, because every steel, every maker tempers in a different way, and the stone reacts to the steel in a different way. Okay, so here you can see. You see how this stone is working on a slightly harsher grit than the Karazu or what I think might be Uchigomori. It's still polishing nicely, but on the soft steel it's scratching ever slightly. And for the best bevel, best in the sense that for what I have here is the most beautiful aesthetic result. I'm gonna put this aside and finish on these two stones. I will leave the karazu last. So we flatten this one and continue our sharpening and polishing. Always use the whole surface of the stone. Flatten and also listen to the sound of the stone action onto the metal. You want hissing, you don't want complete silence, you don't want skipping as best as you can manage. You want to avoid skipping, so when you start skipping, try to adjust your pressure. This is still something that is hard for me to do with some stones, so it takes adjustments, practice, and eventually you get to a point where you know your stones and metals again, and you can take all the natural difference to your advantage in polishing the metal. Always focus on the hard steel in terms of pressure. Keep your form stable, your movement as consistent as possible, your wrist locked in, and you start seeing how this is really becoming a beautiful edge. Now, at this stage, the burr at the back has refined and the thick burr has fallen off, and the bevel at the front is polished to a degree that I'm liking quite a lot. It's really starting to reflect also on the soft steel. You can see the reflection over there. So what we need to do now is on a harder stone, clean the burr again and slowly and decreasing the pressure, moving from side to side until we stop creating new burr and we get rid of the burr that we created so far. When we do this step in a controlled way, your edge is going to be incredibly sharp. So it's important not to stress that burr, because if you imagine the burr is a metal that is attached to the backside and you don't want to break that, you want to sharpen it down rather. If you break it, the actual cutting edge creates microchipping, so it's still gonna cut in most cases, but it can ruin a little bit the sharpness of your bevel. And this has to do with chisels, with straight razors, with knife. So it's a bit, generally speaking, is a bit of a general rule. So yeah, for this step, it's absolutely important to keep flattening the bed even more often, because we don't want the risk to round up the Ura side. We want this side to be completely flat, same as the bevel. So we pass on to the karazu, flatten. So as soon as you flatten, my suggestion is to do the Ura side first on the perfectly flat bed, and then pass on to the bevel before flattening. So you maximize the flatness of the stone, where this needs to be as close as possible to 100% flat. These can have minimum tolerances in terms of flatten. The bevel is a degree less relevant for flattenness, because it's not a reference point in a sense. Our reference point for the work is always at the back, with especially with Japanese chisels. So we give it a few light passes. The pressure here has to be almost non-existent. So it's more about keeping it in place and let the particles do the work. You don't want to stress that burr. You want to sharpen it down, refine it. We stop, clean, and pass. We can put some more water, always a good thing to do. And then we go on to the bevel. We give it another pass at the back. And the bevel again. We dry it. We're going to flatten the bed again and do that one more time. Okay, now we can give it a quick rinse. We can clean it up, and I think we're gonna have a last look, but I think our bevel should be done by this stage. It's a beautiful bevel. It looks very, very consistent to me. The burr has completely disappeared, front and back. And yeah, look at this. You can see the polish there, the reflection on my ring, on both steels. See how it's very consistent throughout the bevel. The backside, the scratch pattern is very fine. And yeah, this is basically how you can sharpen a chisel with natural stones. The whole process, obviously with a bit of aid grinding. There are some coarser natural stones that you can use to do the whole process, but they are not as efficient in rectifying perfectly the geometry of your bevel. So we live in modern days and not in feudal Japan anymore. And when it's about setting up perfectly straight bevels, this is so far the best practice I can recommend. So yeah, to close our thoughts on these, we want to take it slow. We want to really enter the process of sharpening with calm of mind, with peace. It's important to not to rush when you do this type of sharpening. It needs to be enjoyable. It needs to be beautiful throughout the process. So if you feel unease, if you are not at peace, stop, step back, think about where you are, try to enter in your situation, and use this sharpening as almost like a meditation process where you can tune in with yourself, with your feelings, with your hands, with the stone, with the steel. And over time, when everything comes together, you will understand how beautiful and intimate this process can be. Now, I don't want to, make it sound more than like I don't want to fluff it up for you, but it's really true. I want to differentiate the sharpening for productive work, which is different, and my previous video can help speed sharpening to an extent. There are ways to do it a little bit faster, but I genuinely wanted to focus on the natural stones and the slow process. And look, don't worry as well if your bevel is not 100%. You need to get there at some point. And in order to learn how to walk, you need to fall a few times. And I've fallen a few times already. I keep falling every now and then. We saw before I changed the wrong stone using this one here, and I had to step back. So you stand up and continue your journey. So yeah, again, thank you very much, and please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Ciao e a presto!